Hello everybody, welcome back to the finale of the Confederate Independence timeline as we will go through the final years of this timeline from 1987 to today. So, let's get on with it. In 1987, the only thing notable was the election of 1987 where Whig Secretary of Labor Ronald Reagan would defeat Democrat Florida Governor Reuben Askew 457 to 99 to become the 19th Confederate President and the first Northern Confederate President. 1988, Reagan speaks about the rumored Iran-Contra affair and says it's real and all that. Fidel Castro would come out and say that he was also a part of this as well. President Reagan would cut taxes multiple times during this year. He would also increase military spending, and he would also issue a war on drugs. In 1989, Ronald Reagan signs the Free Trade Agreement with Canada. He also signs the Acid Rain Treaty with Canada. The CSN employment is at a record low under the Reagan administration. In 1990, the Soviet Union crashes, ending the Cold War. And President Reagan would threaten war with Lebanon over the Lebanese hostage crisis. President Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev will sign the Chemical Weapons Accord. And President Reagan would enter the... Sorry, that's a typo down there. That's a typo. 1991, President Reagan would send troops to liberate Kuwait. That's a beautiful picture right there. In 1992, there's nothing noteworthy. But in the 1993 election, first we have Ronald Reagan and Boris Yeltsin would sign the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. And there is also the Iraq disarmament crisis. But we also have the 1993 election, with Whig President Ronald Reagan defeating Democrat Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton 447 to 109 to win re-election. 1994, President Reagan and Boris Yeltsin would sign the Kremlin Accords. President Reagan would also sign the Violence Against Women Act of 1994. Reagan would do it, not Clinton. In 1995, Reagan would declare emergency over the Oklahoma City bombing. He would declare a statewide emergency in Oklahoma. And President Reagan would pass the partial birth abortion ban, Also during this time, Reagan's health would be a huge issue amongst citizens. In 1996, there is nothing noteworthy to add. In 1997, President Reagan would bar any federal funding for any research on human cloning, and the Department of Treasury would unveil the $50 bill, which would it wouldn't put Grant on it, it would put Robert E. Lee on it, so it would be Robert E. Lee, not Ulysses Grant. 1998, President Reagan would sign a bill banning public smoking. In 1999, President Reagan, before the election, would sign the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. And so we have Whig Secretary of, I think, the Housing and Urban Development, Jack Kemp, would defeat Democrat Tennessee Governor Al Gore 307 to 249 to become the 20th president of the CSN. In 2000, President Kemp would sign the Rome Statute of International Criminal Court. 2001, a recession would hit the CSN. Kemp tax cuts are going to be signed into law as a precaution, or as a, after this happened, he cut taxes. But things get worse as 9/11 would occur during this year. Still, the War on Terror would begin. Kemp would begin the War on Terror, and President Kemp would sign the Patriot Act. 2002, President Kemp would sign the No Child Left Behind Act, and the Iraq War Resolution would be passed as well. 2003, the Iraq War would begin, and it would end with the execution of Saddam Hussein. And the sodomy laws are going to be deemed unconstitutional by the Confederate Supreme Court. 2004, the CIA and President Kemp admit Iraq had no involvement in the 9/11 attacks, which would cause the House to begin impeachment investigation into President Kemp. But, of course, they are ceased. The Judiciary Committee would not get a complete vote. As an influential senator, you can just imagine whoever says that we need to wait till the election, and good so, because Democrat Senator from North Carolina, John Edwards, would defeat Whig President Jack Kemp 332 to 223 to become the 21st president of the CSN. So there you go, John Edwards would become president. In 2006, President Edwards would increase education spending, and the U.S. housing bubble burst, so this recession would just get worse. In 2007, the war on Somalia would begin between the U.S. and Somalia, and President Edwards would sign the Peru Free Trade Agreement. President Edwards' Riel Hunter scandal would reach the public, which is not good. And, of course, House would begin impeachment investigations of President Edwards because he would lie on air saying he didn't do it, but would admit later he would, so that's lying under oath. And the House would impeach John Edwards for abuse of power, obstruction of Congress, and not libel, but it's lying under oath. I don't remember what it's called right now. I'm having a brain fart. But President Edwards was resigned 24 hours later from the presidency, which Vice President Carol Mosey Braun would become the 22nd president of the CSN and the first female and first black president ever. And of course, there was the global financial crisis, but President Braun would handle this pretty well. She would close the Guantanamo Bay detention camp, which would actually boost the economy up, surprisingly. And the Great Recession would end after she would pull out multiple tax cuts, and she would put funding where it would need to go. 2010, President Braun puts a national ban on texting while driving, and President Braun would sign the Patient and Protection and Affordable Care Act. It would be called Braun Care. And she would also end the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy within the Army. And in 2011, the CSN would shut down over the lack of budget. She would overspend her budget, which would cause it to shut down. And Osama bin Laden would be found and killed by CSN forces, so that's an up for her. But Arizona Whig Senator John McCain would still defeat her 280-276, a very close election. He would become the 23rd president of the CSN. In 2012, President McCain would raise the minimum wage to $8.95 an hour. And President McCain would increase Secret Service funding. He would also increase deportation. But of course, he would also increase deportation with also admitting Puerto Rico as a state within the Confederacy. 2013, President McCain passes the 21st Amendment, which is same-sex marriage. So there you go. And the debt ceiling crisis, which would cause a government shutdown for most of the month. And President McCain signs the liberal McCain budget bill compromise. 2014, President McCain would increase military spending, as Republicans do in this timeline. 2015, President McCain signs a bill decriminalizing marijuana. And he would also sign a bill which allows businesses to discriminate by religion. 2016, President McCain signs a bill increasing the smoking age to 21. He would also sign an open carry gun law. He'd also declare an emergency over the Flint water crisis in Michigan, so he would try to get that done as quickly as possible. Okay, the 2017 years, President McCain would increase funding to the Department of Homeland Security. There you go. And Whig President John McCain would defeat Democrat Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley 291-271 to win re-election. There you go. 2018, tensions increased between the Confederacy and North Korea. McCain would not be good with this. There would be a trade war with the Confederacy would begin a trade war with North Korea and China, so it's a three-way trade war. And there's also a government shutdown due to this, so McCain is not popular, but he sadly passes away, which his vice president, Sarah Palin, would become the 24th president of the CSN and the second female ever. And of course, this is mostly sins of the father. All that unpopularity will be bolstered on to her, though she will quickly fix it. She ends the trade war as President Palin meets with the leaders of both China and North Korea to negotiate something out. President Palin signs a bill outlawing sanctuary cities. There you go. So there are no more sanctuary cities or sanctuary counties within the United States. And President Palin would increase troops in Saudi Arabia. In 2020, there is the Persian, of course, we have this year currently. We have the Persian Gulf crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic. She would declare a national shutdown of the country, what makes her even more unpopular. And she would also give us a relief bill. That is everything that happened so far in 2020. I hope you enjoyed the series. The next one I'm thinking of doing, let's say, a Supreme Court timeline. Yep, Supreme Court timeline. You'll figure out that is next week. But anyway, guys, it's the Chaotic One saying, peace.